Mall. They're blocking a couple of lanes. 90 westbound Oates Road. They've had that shut down with an accident investigation since 6:30 this morning. Also, Katy Freeway headed out on 10 around Park 10, reports of a car fire.
Support comes from Specs Wine, Spirits, and Finer Foods, Texas family-owned and operated since 1962, offering wine, spirits, and gourmet bites, including whiskey pecan pie for the Thanksgiving holiday. SpecsOnline.com. The fun starts here.
Pie. 81 for the high, sunshine, mid-60s for the low tonight. Low 80s tomorrow, mid-80s Sunday, and then those 80s going into next week. Slight chance of rain Tuesday, better chances going in Wednesday, going into Thursday as well. 73 Woodland, 70 here at U of H. It's KUHF Houston News 88.7, a service of the University of Houston, 9 o'clock.
Applications open for school vouchers in the state of Texas in 2 months, but do parents even know about it? I'm Craig Cohen. Today on Houston Matters, surprising results from a Texas Southern University survey.
Houston Matters with Craig Cohen is a production of Houston Public Media with support from Baylor College of Medicine.
Also this hour, documentary filmmaker Ken Burns thinks the American Revolution was more than just one of a handful of seminal moments in world history.
I've said that I think since the birth of Christ, the next most important thing has been the American Revolution.
We talk with Burns ahead of the debut Sunday of his newest PBS series called The American Revolution. Then, from the last penny produced to the world's largest cruise ship, we discuss intrigues in the news this week on the good, the bad, and the ugly. We'll start with the news update from NPR and News 88.7. Stay with us.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Windsor Johnston. Stocks on Wall Street are trading sharply lower this morning, extending Thursday's massive sell-off. NPR's Scott Horsley reports the Dow Jones Industrial Average tumbled more than 500 points in early trading.
Investors are rethinking some of their earlier excitement over the artificial intelligence boom. Both the Dow and the S&P 500 index dropped nearly 1.75% on Thursday, while the tech-heavy Nasdaq fell 2.33%. There's also less confidence that the Federal Reserve will cut interest rates again at its next meeting in December. Walmart shares opened down after the retail giant announced that CEO Doug McMillon will retire early next year after more than a decade in the job. McMillon will continue to serve as an advisor at Walmart, while the head of the company's U.S. business, John Furner, takes over as CEO. Walmart's set to report quarterly earnings next week. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
Now that the government shutdown is over, lawmakers are bracing for the political fallout. Hundreds of thousands of federal workers are returning to their jobs after missing paychecks, and agencies are scrambling to restart everything from safety inspections to backlogged benefit claims. One of the 6 Democrats who voted with House Republicans to fund the government was California Congressman Adam Gray. He says the shutdown went on far too long.
It became pretty clear during this government shutdown, the longest U.S. history, that the president and the Republican majority were, really comfortable putting the most vulnerable Americans at risk with the SNAP program and some of these other important funding programs. So it just felt immoral, frankly, to continue with it.
Gray says both parties will have to answer for the uncertainty the shutdown caused, especially for families who couldn't afford to wait for lawmakers to resolve their differences. The Department of Justice is joining a lawsuit seeking to overturn California's new congressional maps, which favor Democrats. The lawsuit came after voters approved Proposition 50 to draw new lines ahead of next year's midterm elections. Guy Maserati from member station KQED reports.
The Trump administration is teaming up with the California Republican Party to ask a federal judge to block the new congressional map from taking effect. They argue the Proposition 50 district lines were drawn to unfairly benefit Latino voters, violating the equal protection and voting rights of other Californians. Governor Gavin Newsom frames Prop 50 as an effort to counter moves by Republicans in Texas, Missouri, North Carolina, and possibly others. Democrats in Virginia have also countered, and other states are considering it. In a statement, a spokesperson for Newsom says Republicans, quote, lost at the ballot box, and soon they will also lose in court. For NPR News, I'm Guy Marzorati in San Francisco.
This is NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Sony Pictures Classics with Nuremberg, a new thriller starring Russell Crowe, Rami Malek, and Michael Shannon about the historic post-World War II trial of Nazi official Hermann Göring, now playing in theaters.
Live from News 88.7 in Houston, I'm Matt Harab. Houston ISD's state-appointed Board of Managers approved more than $180 million in bonds last night to finance construction of a new career and technical education center. This comes 1 year after voters rejected a $4.4 billion bond package for the district. The board also voted to approve a settlement agreement with former Chief of Human Resources, Jessica Naiman. She was removed from her position back in September after roughly 2 years in the role without the district providing details as to why. HISD did not immediately respond to a request for comment. Naiman did not address the settlement directly, but told Houston Public Media that, quote, after reshaping what is now a high-performing HR department, I could not be prouder of my team's accomplishments, unquote. Harris County commissioners voted to approve a worksite safety policy that establishes monitoring and inspection standards for county construction projects. Commissioner Tom Ramsey, the lone Republican on the county's elected court, voted against the policy. He said that it was rushed and did not involve enough community input.
I think we need to ask ourselves, what is the timeline? Why do we wake up a month ago and said, we're going to get this done in a month? Well, if we started 2 years ago and worked on it, okay, that would be it. We didn't do that.
Harris County has one of the highest rates of severe heat-related injuries and injuries on construction sites, according to commissioners. And just down the street from the Galveston shore sits a 28,000-square-foot tent with 2 million pounds of ice inside it, all part of Moody Gardens' upcoming Iceland exhibit. Our Juliana Washburn has more.
30 ice carvers from Harbin, China have spent the past month transforming large ice blocks using hand tools or chainsaws into sculptures of the Arc de Triomphe and Big Ben. And as Moody Gardens spokesperson Jared Schaller points out,
this week we have the Trevi fountain that's brand new, and it was just a huge block of ice last week.
Moody Gardens will open its Iceland exhibit for its 11th year on November 22nd. The theme is Christmas around the world.
You get to walk through some amazing things, like we have the Alamo that you get to walk through. We have the Great Wall of China.
The exhibit will run through January 3rd. From the Galveston County Bureau, I'm Juliana Washburn, News 88.7.
76 degrees right now here on the UH campus. We'll get a high of around 82 today. I'm Matt Harab, News 88.7.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Good morning. Coming up this hour, documentary filmmaker Ken Burns, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and we preview an Indigenous music festival. But first, while the state of Texas launches its first school voucher program, how many families actually know about it? A new survey from TSU finds more than half of Texas parents don't. Michael Adams is a professor of public affairs and founding director of the Barbara Jordan Public Policy Research and Survey Center at Texas Southern University. His team surveyed 900 Texas parents between late October and early November to gauge their familiarity with the program and how likely they'd be to apply. Michael, good morning.
Hey, good morning, Craig. How are you?
I'm all right. And yourself?
I'm well.
53% of respondents say they didn't know about the so-called Texas Education Freedom Accounts. Are you surprised by that result?
Yes, I was. I'm surprised, and I think it actually dovetails with the concern that we have. We know that school vouchers, as you call it, euphemistically, that has been changed to Educational Savings Account. Now it's called Education Freedom Accounts. We know that there was a lot of vitriol back and forth over the two last legislative session. And 2025, we saw in the regular session the passage of Senate Bill 2. So it's a reality now. So what we wanted to do was to shift focus and to see what the familiarity was and also who would be willing to apply. Because also during the debate, there was a lot of back and forth about that this was something that would only benefit the wealthy and what have you. And so what we found, as you indicated, was that, more than 53% were unfamiliar with the savings accounts.
You found that 56% of parents agree with the legislature's decision to create the program, but when you asked who's actually likely to apply, only 40% said they would. What accounts for that gap between support and participation?
Yeah, if you break it down amongst demographics in terms of groups and also religious affiliation, it's kind of interesting. Significant the population that we focus on in the research center, primarily looking at minority groups, African Americans, 60%, they are more likely to apply for the program. Latinos are also likely to apply. And then we saw in terms of the white groups, in terms of partisanship was important. There was a significant opposition amongst white Democrats as opposed to white Republicans for the program. They held the view that it would take away monies from the public schools. But it was kind of interesting in terms of the minority groups. Blacks were more concerned about the quality of education, and Latinos, they expressed interest in terms of school safety. And that was significant as well.
You alluded to the fact that you asked parents who regularly attend religious services whether they would be enthusiastic about their place of worship opening a school. What'd you find out?
Yeah, well, there, if regular church attendance, the respondents were more likely to support school vouchers. And if we disaggregate the data again, even Anglos or whites, they wanted to reflect religious values, for example, and we saw an increase there in terms of that particular group.
51% of respondents who say they will not apply say they are happy with their kids' current public school. What does that suggest about the actual demand for school vouchers versus the political rhetoric?
It suggests that in certain areas, and we know here in HISD for many years, the quality of education varies from campus to campus. And you could also suggest that some of those parents, they're satisfied to have good schools in their areas. And we know we've had a history, I've been here for many years in terms of magnet programs, and you really have some higher performance schools that are not necessarily reflected in the district performance. So that could be one way of looking at that as well.
You also noticed some discrepancies in terms of income. Parents earning less than 65 grand are more than twice as likely to say they'll apply compared to those earning more than 100,000. But among those lower income parents who say they won't apply, 39% of them cite insufficient funds. They basically say, look, the $10,800 that we might receive wouldn't cover private school tuition, and so they can't afford the difference. Is this one of the key factors that may limit the effectiveness of this program?
Well, not necessarily limit the effectiveness of the programs. And I think a part of the application process, you have to have in your district is called an individual education plan. So you have to work with the school district there. And then if you want to apply to one of the parochial schools, certainly there may be scholarships and other things that may make up the difference. But you are correct that $10,000, many of them, you won't be able to go to Kincaid and St. John for that amount of money.
And you found 28% of parents not applying say they don't think their family's eligible, but you believe many of them actually are. What does that suggest to you?
Yeah, well, I think there's a information gap, I believe. Now we've gone through, the law has been enacted, and I think it's incumbent on the comptroller and also I think the firm that has been being hired out of New York or New Jersey to actually implement the program. It's about the awareness of the program. And I think they don't understand in terms of even for homeschooling, the breakdown is $2,000. And then, as you mentioned, the voucher of $10,000. But during the legislative debate, you should remember now that the argument was that a significant portion would go to low-income individuals and also individuals with disabilities, where you can get as much as $30,000.
Any other key takeaways from this survey?
No, I just think that clearly we have to do more, and it's going to be incumbent upon the state to really educate the public, because you started off the segment by saying that 53%, that's a large number of people who are not familiar with the program or unaware with the program. So I think there has to be an educational outreach. I hadn't seen the plan, anything coming out of the comptroller's office or whatever, but there's a need actually to educate these parents about this, because what will happen on the back end, we may see the various publics will say, well, I didn't have a chance. Well, if you didn't know about it, and those individuals, the groups, and also I think the leadership within those communities, whether it's elected officials. It's a reality now. You're talking about giving away $1 billion. So you may want to educate your public, and some people will be able to benefit from it.
Michael Adams is a professor of public affairs and founding director of the Barbara Jordan Public Policy Research and Survey Center at Texas Southern University. Michael, thank you so much.
Thank you. All the best.
You too. Up next, filmmaker Ken Burns on his new documentary series, The American Revolution. Stay with us as Houston Matters continues.
Hi, I'm Lenny Ambrose from St. Arnold Brewing Company, proud supporters of Houston Public Media. Right now, with your $60 donation, you can choose tickets to News and Brews. This member-exclusive event takes place February 17th. Enjoy a pint, connect with fellow NPR fans, and meet the Houston Public Media newsroom in person. Select News and Brews tickets when you donate at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate.
Premiering Sunday night at 7 on TV8. Support for Houston Public Media comes from Baylor College of Medicine. With 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
Support comes from the 45th Annual Houston Ballet Nutcracker Market. This weekend at NRG Center, Houston Ballet Nutcracker Market, a shopping destination for the holidays. Tickets available at NRG Center and Ticketmaster.com.
Support comes from Galveston Historical Foundation, presenting the 52nd anniversary of Dickens on the Strand. Galveston's historic streets come alive once again with special events, entertainment, and holiday cheer. December 5th through the 7th. DickensOnTheStrand.org.
This is Houston Matters. I'm Craig Cohen. Filmmaker Ken Burns says the 13 colonies uniting in rebellion to win their independence from England might be the most important moment in world history since the birth of Christ. So it should come as little surprise the latest documentary from Burns is called The American Revolution. The 6-part series begins Sunday night at 7 and continues each night through next Friday on Houston Public Media TV8 and other PBS stations nationwide. Burns visited with me here at Houston Public Media earlier this year to talk about the series and why he believes America breaking from England was so pivotal in human history. Ken Burns, welcome.
Thank you.
I kind of want to begin with how you came around to the decision to devote, let's face it, what is probably going to be a lot of time and energy, a lot of focus on the American Revolution. You could have picked any topic probably to do your next film on. Why that?
Well, we sort of realized that if we were given 1,000 years to live, we wouldn't run out of any topics in American history. A lot of it is a terrible thing about human experience, which is you learn a lot from wars. And we did in the Civil War and sort of vowed we're going to leave that alone for a while. Eventually got drawn into doing the Second World War, and before the ink was dry on that in 2006, we committed to doing something on the Vietnam War that came out in 2017. But before the ink was dry on that, in December of 2015, Barack Obama still had 13 months in his presidency. I just said we're doing the revolution, and it was a gut feeling. There's no calculus. There's no focus groups. You do it because you want to be drawn. And I think having done these major wars, the most important war, the Civil War, and then the 20th century wars, which we accept the violence of and realize how protected the revolution is, mainly because we don't have photographs, we don't have newsreels. We are afraid, I think, that the big ideas would be diminished. I realized we had to figure out a way to tell this story as completely as we were able to tell the Civil War or, say, World War II.
I would imagine one of the big challenges was figuring out how to structure it and how far back do you go to start the story?
Yeah, well, I was about to say the structuring is easy. It's chronology. You know, Shelby Foote, when I was working on the Civil War, told me God is the greatest dramatist, which means and then, and then,
right.
and then. And that's how you tell a history. But you're absolutely right. When you begin is super, super important. And we actually sort of back up to 21 years before the revolution happens, to around 1754, when the beginning of the French and Indian War, what we call the French and Indian War, is a global war that's called the 7 Years' War, that Britain will be victorious in with the help in North America of colonists, including George Washington, who may have shot the first shot of that war, and also the time when Benjamin Franklin is looking as a postmaster. He alone knows everybody. These are really 13 distinct places that are as different from each other as night from day, and they don't know each other, but he's been the postmaster, and so he's traveled them. And he's also studied Native American societies, the nations that are bordering the western part of the colonies, and seen that they've had confederations, democracies that they've set up that have worked and functioned for decades. And so he gets the idea that maybe we can try this. Nobody anywhere thinks it's a good idea. But he'd drawn a cartoon of a snake called Join or Die over the dire warning, Join or Die, and then it becomes the rallying cry 20 years later when the revolution actually happens. And so we back up there and try to figure out who these people are, 3,000 miles away from the mother country, more literate than people in the mother country, owning land, which most people in the mother country didn't have, having a degree of independence and love of that independence that is going to inculcate some of the things that are going to unite these disparate colonies in an effort to throw off the British monarchy.
There are all sorts of ways that the story of the American Revolution has been told in the past, nonfiction and fiction alike. How much attention did you pay to the idea of let's find a way to approach this that's different from what's been told before?
We never do that. We just want to find out what's going on. Obviously, fiction takes liberties. We are not permitted to do that. Obviously, for so much of the way we've told the revolution, even in history classes, it's been informed by mythology, by just a simple top-down narrative that is the story, particularly in the revolution, of great men, capital G, capital M. And that's not how it happened. There are women that are at the edges, children at the edges of all the battles that are following them around. There's a dynamic within the American society of the native peoples who live and coexist with the colonists, and of the 500,000 people out of 2.5 million who are enslaved or are free blacks there. And then, of course, the native nations on the west who are significant states the way Virginia is a significant state. The Shawnees may be like Virginia, who are trading with the French, who are trading with the British, who've had for centuries relationships to a global economy. And those are not sort of taken into consideration. And we also don't go into detail, because of the absence of newsreels, of what actually takes place on the Lexington Green, at the North Bridge, at Breed's Hill, Bunker's Hill, at all of these various things. So when you come out of this, you'll know 40 battles, and you'll understand why they're different, and why we won and why we lost, and why we just survived with just, the best of luck, and what the great leadership was of George Washington that allowed it, even though he made some pretty dumb tactical decisions in several instances. Just his leadership alone, as many people say throughout the film, without him, there's no us. And that's a significant celebration. But along with him are lots of other people no one's heard about. At that time, 0.01% of the population had their picture painted. So that means everybody else is anonymous to history. So it's really hard without invention to make people up. But you can read church rolls, you can read enlistment rosters, you can read obituaries, you can read this and find through the footnotes that that person kept a diary or that person wrote letters. And all of a sudden you can film the letter, you can film the signature, you can see the places where they lived, and you can, if you have, as we have, not just a third-person narrator, but a chorus of voices reading literally hundreds of different voices read by the greatest actors of our time. I mean, we have a better cast than any Hollywood film ever. I mean, Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep and Samuel L. Jackson and Morgan Freeman and Damian Lewis and Sir Kenneth Branagh and Matthew Rhys and Claire Danes and Paul Giamatti and Mandy Patinkin. And I've gone through maybe a sixth of the people, all of whom you'd recognize. It's pretty exciting that off camera they can help breathe the necessary life into people that we may not be even able to show a portrait of them because of their station in life.
Could you maybe pick out one story, one figure, one example of someone's experience through the course of the American Revolution or their part within it that was something you did not know about?
We could spend a couple of hours doing that. This is all us not telling you our audience what you should know. It's us sharing with you our process of discovery. And so it's been, an amazing journey. We've been working on this for 9.5 years. And by the time it's out, it'll be almost 10 years. But John Greenwood is a 14-year-old kid in Boston. The British occupy Boston. They send some troops in to occupy the city as a police action. And he's a little boy transfixed by the Afro-Cuban bands that are playing fifes and drums. And so he wants to become a fifer. And by the time of Lexington and Concord, he's up in what is now Portland, Maine, in an apprenticeship, but he hears what's happened and he wants to get back to get to his parents who live in Boston, and he can't. And so he joins a militia at age 14 and serves for many years. Finally goes home because he's just exhausted from fighting. He's still a teenager. And then later joins the privateers, the ships that are attacking British shipping and are really driving the British crazy. We think that we may have captured more than 2,000 British ships in the course of the Revolution. And then later on he becomes a dentist whose most famous client is, guess who?
George Washington.
Exactly. No wooden teeth mentioned in this series. So that's just one.
Yeah.
Hundreds of people.
There are certainly some obvious themes that must come up in all of your documentaries that surround wars. But I'm wondering if you also tie in baseball and jazz and all the others. Are there any unifying concepts, thoughts, things that, whether intentional or not, just kind of keep coming up?
So I think up until this film, I've always said that I've made the same film over and over again, asking one deceptively simple question: who are we? Who are the strange and complicated people who like to call themselves Americans? There are lots of other people who can lay claim to that, from the North Pole to the South Pole. And what does it tell us about not only where we've been, but where we are and where we're going? So this, and one of the impetuses, one of the big, strong reasons that you say yes to that gut thought about doing the American Revolution, is that it's going to not necessarily answer it, but it's going to go back and say, what was it that made this experiment so distinct? And it's obvious. Before the Revolution, everybody lived under authoritarian rule. Afterwards, there were some very, very lucky people who were citizens with the enormous responsibility that the founders thought the citizens bore, to lead a more virtuous life, to be engaged in continuing education. To pursue happiness was not the pursuit of wealth and objects in a marketplace of things, but lifelong learning in a marketplace of ideas. That's what we do in public media, I hope, from cradle to grave. And I think it was the American experience. They're always saying the word virtue. They've gone back into antiquity and plucked it out and said that. And there's worries and anxieties. John Adams is always, he's the big worrier of the revolution, and he's worried that there's not enough virtue. There's too much ambition and avarice and too much greed for us to be able to start a republic. But you get it. Jefferson says a few lines later in the Declaration, after the famous second sentence that ends with pursuit of happiness, which we now know means lifelong learning. He says, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable. It means through all of human history, we just put up with this stuff, the tyrant's rule, and we're just not going to do it. But he's acknowledging that the human nature, the impulse, is to put up with it, and that somehow we have to swim upstream against this tide of human nature. To just sort of says, sure, what else can I do? My family's worked this land without owning it in Wales for 1,000 years. What's going to change? Well, 3,000 miles away, you've gone over there maybe as an indentured servant, maybe you just paid everything you had and you got there, and now you own a piece of land, or you've worked off your contract and you're able to get a piece of land, or you start a business, and you're really far away from the mother country. And until they start taxing you to help pay for the biggest empire on earth, which includes a good deal of North America, you're the most literate people on earth. You're the happiest people on earth. You're the healthiest people on earth. You've begun to incubate these extraordinary ideas that are perfectly of the moment of the Enlightenment, but also go back to some of the most ancient biblical and religious, spiritual, and classical texts and ideas that we have. And so we are the Enlightenment put into practice. That's what the Declaration does. It distills a century of Enlightenment thinking into one sentence, the second sentence of the Declaration. And it's the most consequential revolution in the history of the world, and it's one of the most important events ever. I've said that I think since the birth of Christ, the next most important thing has been the American Revolution.
To some, I suppose that breaking away from tyranny and pursuing happiness and all that you just described is obvious, and I suspect to some it's not so obvious that that's what we can and should be about. And
well, I think we don't think about it enough, right? I don't think we explore exactly who we are. It is that momentum of human nature is interested in superstitions and all of the things that people are susceptible to, conspiracies we call them today, but it's the same thing, superstitions. And what I think that the series has a chance to do, as I've said, is to put the us back in the U.S., to realize the extent to which our fortunes are very much tied up with the people back then, that we are very much like them. An incredibly divided time, horribly divided time, much worse. People, patriots killing loyalists, loyalists killing patriots, just, very divisions. And a loyalist, we call balls and strikes in this film. The loyalist isn't a bad person. They're a conservative. They don't want to change things. Why would we change from the healthiest form of government that exists so far, the British constitutional monarchy? It's benevolent, the parliament, the king, all of this stuff. And there are these people arguing for more, and you realize you're opening the door to some really dangerous things. I think being educated allows people to see themselves. A good story is like a Trojan horse that you invited in, and rather than opening up at night and slaughtering the city, it opened up and enlightens the city, enlightens the human being. And I think that's what good stories are able to do, and remind people that, as Benjamin Rush, who was one of the founders at the time, said, the American War is over, but the American Revolution is still going on.
You said you committed to this about a decade ago. What else have you committed to in the 10 years since? What's coming up?
We've released almost a film. I think, yes, a film a year since the time we said yes to that. But we're working on a big series that I think Texans will be particularly interested in, that was sort of sponsored by our curiosity about him during the Vietnam War. So we're doing the history not of Lyndon Johnson's disastrous foreign policy, one of many presidents with disastrous foreign policies with regard to Vietnam, but his domestic agenda. So we're doing a film on LBJ and the Great Society. We just came from Austin and had a great time, seeing some of the folks who worked for President Johnson and his daughters and others that we've already interviewed and been working on for many years. We're doing a history of Reconstruction, one of the most misunderstood periods in American history. We've just got a lot of projects going and a lot of ideas for projects, but it's going to take that moment, just like with the revolution, where it isn't just a mental thing. It just drops down to your gut.
Is there a point at which you're going to say, just personally, you know what, enough. I don't want to add any more to this list.
I work, one of my, we have a couple of, or three production teams, and one of them is my oldest daughter, Sarah, and we just finished Leonardo da Vinci that was out, and before that, Muhammad Ali, and before that, Jackie Robinson, and before that, the Central Park Five, and that's the team that's working on the reconstruction and other projects that are going forward. I don't see that. I love my work, and as someone says, if you love your work, then you don't work a day in your life. And I work with extraordinary people. Sarah Botstein on this film has been, just invaluable as a producer. She's worked with me for 27 years or more, and so we've got a really good team of people who work really hard. And I don't know what keeps you younger than just sort of pursuing. Harry Truman said the only thing that's really new is the history you don't know. And I love that because it's true. We sort of see the past as fixed and our future is unknown. Our futures, I can probably tell more or less what you're going to do for the next 24 hours. And I'd be right. But I can't tell what you did the last 24 hours. And we have lots of periods in our history where new scholarship suddenly changes the dynamic of something. Think of Thomas Jefferson and DNA, how that's altered the course of how we receive the third president and the author of the Declaration of Independence in good and perhaps negative ways to some people. But all it does is add to our understanding of who he is. And so the farther away you get from a topic, you benefit from scholarship, you benefit from writers who have gone in, even dramatic things. My goodness, one of the great events of this new century, this quarter century, is Hamilton. It's beyond a play. It's a cultural event that has permeated. And what's it about? And kids are supposed to be disinterested in that. And you hear my grandkids and my youngest kids rapping at high speeds about, the Revolution and Schuyler, who's in it, and Hamilton, who's in it, and Burr, who's in it. And you just go, wow. This is great. If we can turn on people to just Alexander Hamilton, I think they'll find themselves ignited in a different way by the stories that are in the American Revolution.
Filmmaker Ken Burns, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The new 6-part documentary series, The American Revolution, debuts Sunday night on PBS stations across the country, including at 7 o'clock Sunday on Houston Public Media TV 8. It then continues each night through next Friday. There's more information at houstonmatters.org. Just ahead, from the last new penny to the world's largest cruise ship, we contemplate intrigues in the news on this week's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly as Houston Matters continues.
You count on Houston Public Media. That's why you're here right now. Take the next step and become a new member today. Every gift makes a difference. And with a gift of $5 a month or more, you'll receive PBS Passport, a member benefit that lets you stream more of the shows you love anytime. It only takes a minute to make a big difference. Join as a new member today at houstonpublicmedia.org/donate or call 800-364-8300.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Metro. Introducing Metro Downtown Direct, helping riders get home for the holidays with non-stop service between downtown and Bush Intercontinental Airport. Details at ridemetro.org/500.
And from DePelchin Children's Center, whose annual holiday project aims to fulfill the wish list of more than 2,000 children in their care. Info on getting involved is at DePelchinHolidayProject.org.
A lot can happen in a week, some of it good, some of it bad, some of it downright ugly. When faced with intriguing developments in the week's news, we turn to a rotating panel of non-experts to parse the good, the bad, and the ugly of it all. On today's panel, Raúl Ramos, Associate Professor of History at the University of Houston, Houston Chronicle news columnist Joy Sewing, and Natalie Arceneaux, President of Arceneaux International Consulting. Raúl, Joy, Natalie, welcome to Houston Matters.
Good morning, Howdy.
Good morning. Panel, we reached the end of an era this week as the U.S. Mint officially halted production of the penny. The 1-cent coins were first introduced way back in 1793, but as the years have gone on, they have become more expensive to produce. They actually cost nearly 4 cents per 1-cent penny to make. Upon halting production at the Mint in Philadelphia, U.S. Treasurer Brandon Beach remarked Wednesday, "We're going to save the taxpayers $56 million. Billions of pennies still remain in circulation and will remain legal tender, though some retailers are already telling customers they may not be able to provide exact change in cash transactions as the supply of pennies now starts to dwindle. We'll still pay to the penny for all sorts of things. We just won't have any shiny new ones from the U.S. Mint. Is this good, bad, or ugly?" Raúl Ramos, start us off.
I'm surprised you didn't ask me for my 2 cents or a penny for my thoughts.
Well, I could have gone there.
Yes, you're really
I'm
letting
off my
me down
game.
here. Yes.
Yeah.
I think this could be good. I think that we'll have less clutter in our cars. I don't know about y'all, but I don't have a penny in my pocket right now. What I am concerned about is what's going to do to our language. I mean, we use the word penny in so many different ways in our language, and it's going to be hard to change that. And I'm only going to feel older when I'm talking to folks who don't know what I'm talking about. Again, I said penny for your thoughts, penny any, penny pincher. I think there's so many ways we can think of pennies.
My guess is that those phrases will remain, and it's just that the origin of the word will, across generations, eventually kind of fritter into the distant past.
Right, or I'll get called unk a lot more often than that.
Good, bad, or ugly, Joy Sewing?
I think whenever you talk about saving significant amount of money, that's a good thing, especially now. However, from a nostalgic standpoint, I think pennies I have such memories of my dad collecting pennies in a piggy bank, and then that became my little savings. I have young children, and I'm able to teach them about counting using pennies and other coins. So I think what we might see is people are not able to count as well. But I think the penny has been a wonderful tool to help children learn.
Haven't we already seen that, though? Generation by
Yes.
generation,
Mm-hmm.
less
Absolutely.
ability to make change
Yes.
effectively?
I saw it at McDonald's last week.
Good, bad, or ugly, Natalie Arceneaux?
I think it's good. I think it's really great, actually. And to Joy's point, yeah, if your total's 902 and you give somebody 1002, depending on their age, they're like, carry the one, divide by two.
They don't even carry anymore.
Yeah, I know, they don't carry anymore.
Can you just tap? Just tap.
That's what I tap. So I'm pretty soon, I think everyone who's nostalgic for the coin should probably start, again, I'm a change manager, so you should probably start to get your mindset in the space that there will be even less currency, not just coin, but even dollar bills in circulation as we continue to transition to more digital forms of payment. So I think it's great because, one, it's costing us money. So to everybody's point, we get to save $56 million. And it sets the stage for what is later to come, which is no currencies at all.
Crypto pennies.
Crypto pennies.
Well, I am also curious, do you think we will reach a point when we simply won't break things down to the cent, and that nickels, like 5-cent increments or 10-cent increments or dollars or what have you, will become the smallest form of currency?
I honestly do. I think we'll end on zeros at the end of everything, right? And I actually think this is an opportunity for retailers when it comes to philanthropic things, because now the rounding piece, right? So, some people have the round for a charity kind of thing. So now it makes it a little more appealing because you can't make change. And so while they're trying to figure out how to make change, maybe it's offering your customer, hey, instead of giving you back 87 cents, let's just round this to charity and we'll give it to charity on your behalf. And so if more retailers do that, then we also have a philanthropic.
Look at that.
Free consulting. Free consulting Friday.
I'm guessing gas stations won't be happy, though.
What about
they always like putting those nines and 9 cents at the end.
They actually break it down smaller than a cent, right?
They do.
So it could work.
Yeah.
Panel, the world's largest cruise ship is coming to Galveston in 2027. Royal Caribbean's Icon of the Seas features 20 decks, more than 20 dining venues, a giant water park, and capacity for 7,600 people. As the Houston Chronicle's Peter Warren reported this week, after spending some months based in Florida, the ginormous cruise ship will head to Galveston in preparation for 6, 7, and 8-day journeys from the Texas coast to the Caribbean, including stops in the Bahamas and Cozumel. The world's largest cruise ship will sail out of Galveston starting in 2027. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Joy?
I think it's fantastic. I've been on cruises with my kids, and Royal Caribbean has an amazing ship and customer service and everything. So the experience has been tremendous for us. So the fact that we won't have to fly anywhere, we can just drive on down to Galveston and get on the world's largest cruise ship. I think that's pretty cool.
Okay, good, bad, or ugly, Natalie?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's great. For those, I just started cruising. Now I'm not getting on a cruise ship with 7,600 people, as you know, because I just me and germs. But I've cruised on smaller ships, which some of them are in the fleet of Norwegian, and so really cool. Mainly, what I think is really exciting about it, aside from it being drivable, is that the economy in Galveston is about to be amplified quite significantly, because now you have people who are coming from Dallas and Austin and all over to get on this, what is now, again, the world's largest cruise ship. And so you think about 7,600 people descending on Galveston who need to eat, need a place to stay overnight, whatever the case may be. That's really great for their economy. So I'm excited for Galveston, because then that also trickles to Houston.
There you go.
Good, bad, or ugly, Raúl?
You know, I'm going to go with a little bit potentially ugly here, because and to your point, I know, look, I get it. And I've had fun on cruises. I'm not going to lie. In fact, one of the things I was thinking about that I enjoy about going on cruises, you kind of switch a part of your brain off where you have to find out what to do. It's all right there. There's no choices. But I feel like this kind of defeats the purpose a little bit. I was thinking about it. There's 20 restaurants on it. I mean, even if on a 5-day cruise, even on 3 meals a day, there's 5 restaurants I won't be able to go to. I'm gonna have FOMO. I don't want to have FOMO on a cruise ship.
Oh, really?
Look, no. The thing I worry about is because I'm around a lot of healthcare workers, and the germ part, you're just increasing your odds, right? The norovirus is not a small thing. I also do look at some reason I'm being nostalgic during this session, and so I started thinking about my first knowledge of cruise ships was the film Poseidon Adventure, and I was thinking of Ernest Borgnine, making his way from when the ship was turned over by a rogue wave, and Shelley Winters like falling through the stained glass is still like etched in my mind. I know that's probably.
Okay, Unc.
Right, there we go.
Yes. The dark cloud.
I honestly, I was expecting somebody to bring up Titanic, and you went Poseidon Adventure on us.
Neither one of you get to do PR.
There you go.
Panel, Halloween may seem like a distant memory, but not on the music charts, since these days Billboard singles are based on what people are streaming, and this past week's published results covered Halloween and the week that followed. Guess what found its way into the top 10? Michael Jackson's Thriller. As NPR's Stephen Thompson reported Thursday, that's notable because it means the late king of pop, who died in 2009, has charted a top 10 hit in 6 consecutive decades, in 2 of those decades now posthumously. He's the only artist ever to accomplish the feat, and in a way he kind of did so in 7 decades, because the Jackson 5's first top 10 hit, I Want You Back, was released in late December of 1969. Michael Jackson scores a top 10 hit for a 6th straight decade. Is this good, bad, or ugly? Natalie?
I'm 3 for 3 on great for this year. I think it's amazing. I love it that he's staying relevant, regardless of the kind of the season that's bringing it about and the spookiness of it all. But I think it's important for generations to continue to hear the music from previous generations, and so him being a top 10, that's fantastic. It's also great for his estate because they get streaming dollars, and I always bring things back to money.
There
I don't
you
know
go.
what this is, but anyway, they get a little extra change in their pocket, not pennies though.
All right, good, bad, or ugly, Raúl?
I'm gonna go with great, good as well, and I think given this discussion of nostalgia, I do think it's about building bridges between generations, right? Now we have something in common. I'm trying to work on not being Unc all the time here, but what's interesting to me is how this artist and this music, and Thriller in particular, shows how the way we experience, consume or whatever you want to call music, has changed. I mean, Thriller was one of the first breakout music videos, right? And now we're talking about streaming music, and how does streaming get counted as far as popularity? You usually have to choose a song to stream. Before, we were counting, music played on the radio, and how that got put on the radio. Was it people calling? Was it payola? Things are changing. The entire industry changes. Yet the constant through all of this is Michael Jackson.
All right. Raúl took most of your time, but Joy.
Okay, look, you're talking to a person who has dogs named Tina Turner and Prince.
Oh, there you go.
So I am all for this. I think it's amazing. I was a Michael Jackson fan, and the fact that my kids get to
continue to listen to the music, learn the Thriller choreography, which is unbelievable, and it continues for generations. And I think that's important, and that's what music is about.
That's Joy Sewing. She's a news columnist with the Houston Chronicle. Raúl Ramos is an associate professor of history at the University of Houston. Natalie Arceneaux is president of Arceneaux International Consulting. Joy, Raúl, Natalie, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Now
sir.
we got to moonwalk out of here.
It's not just your car. It's the one that brought your kids home from school, took you cross country, held memories, laughter, even a few breakdowns. When it's time to let go, give your car a new purpose. Donate it and turn memories into meaningful support for this station. Plus, you'll enjoy free and easy pickup, potential tax benefits, and a simple donation process. Your gift supports the programs you and your family love. Donate today and help keep public media strong. Call or donate online.
Curiosity, understanding, and friendship. Families explore other cultures through the eyes of Houston kids. More at cmhouston.org.
And from Alley Theater, performances of A Christmas Carol presented by UT Health Houston begins November 16th. It features Ebenezer Scrooge and the spirits who teach the meaning of the holiday season. More at alleytheater.org.
Houston Public Media is licensed to the University of Houston system, governed by the UH Board of Regents. Information about open meetings, dates, times, and locations is online at uhsystem.edu.
That's the music of White Mountain Apache violinist and composer Laura Ortman. She and other Indigenous artists from across North America are gathering here in Houston to perform at this weekend's Good Medicine Indigenous Music Festival. It features classical, traditional, and experimental Native music and culture. Aryn Ward is a Muskogee and Yuchi composer, musician, and vocalist who has organized the festival and will perform during it as well. Aryn Ward, welcome to Houston Matters. Good morning.
SJ, yeah, good morning. It's great to be here.
What led you to decide to organize this?
Okay, so it's crazy how big this has gotten. I just applied for some grants with HAA in Midtown Houston, and I just happened to get them. So I was like, oh, hey, look, I can do things. So I'm so excited that everybody that I asked just said, yeah, sure, I'll come play. I'll come do that. Laura Ortman and Raven Chacon and Dr. Kirsten Kunkel and Mark Billy and Keegan Ryan. Yeah, it's just amazing. So many people have said yes, and it's just a dream that I can get my music played with these amazing artists also, musicians.
So you got some grant money to get this going. You're studying music here in Houston as well. Mm-hmm. Two good reasons for this to take place in Houston, but I'm curious if you think there's anything else about Houston that makes it a good setting for a festival like this.
Houston is just so diverse, but it seems like it's hard to find Indigenous music and Indigenous things. There are some, because it's Houston. It's just so big. There's so many people. But I just wanted to make something that had a little bit of something for everybody. And so it's the Good Medicine Festival just is the span of what Indigenous music can be and is going towards, So, but yeah, it's been amazing.
We should underscore the diversity within the festival itself. This features musicians and other artists from 10 different tribal nations. How do you decide who to invite?
Like I said, I just asked people and they said yes to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited. But yeah, I've found people through Instagram and social media, and I've kind of listened to their music, and I asked a lot more people than that are actually here. So I had to pick and choose kind of who was able to come. So, but yeah, I have a lot of more for next year too. So,
oh, good.
But yeah, Dr. Kirsten Kunkel, she's been amazing. She's actually Muskogee like I am. So, and she's bringing her little 6-year-old daughter, Stephanie, to sing with her too. But yeah, she's my same tribe, and I wanted to represent, Muskogee a little bit more than the others, but I still love everybody, and it's amazing. And Mark, Billy, and Keegan Ryan, oh my gosh, they've been so helpful, and they've jumped every hurdle with me along the way. And then Laura Ortman, I mean, I've played with her at Lawndale before, and I'm gonna play with her again on Monday. So, but she is a great person and a really wonderful friend. And then Raven Chacon, I actually ended up meeting him in Marfa with David Dove, the founder of Nameless Sound. And I was just like, oh, hey, you want to play in Houston sometime? And he was like, yeah, sure. Let me know. And it just ended up working out with his schedule. And I'm so grateful for that.
You brought a flute with you this morning. Not one you might expect to find in an orchestra, though. First of all, it's much more sizable.
Yes,
than we normally would see. In fact, I would characterize it as was about 2 feet long.
Yeah, it's about 2 feet. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about this flute?
So this is a cedar flute made by Fraser. It's made of actual cedar wood, but it's got six tone holes, and it's F sharp minor pentatonic. And I can play more notes than that. I can use alternate fingerings and do some fun stuff. So, but yeah, this one is one of my favorite ones to play on.
Would you mind playing a little bit of music on there?
Play.
Something that might, reflect some of what you're going to do on Monday?
Yeah.
Nice. Very well done. What was that? How would you describe what you just played?
So part of it is kind of a piece that I'm writing currently that's not finished yet.
Okay, fair enough.
So, but yeah, I do. I'm making a Muskogee month suite, and so there's little pieces every month that I've been writing, and so that's part of one of them.
Okay. All right, let's get to the nitty gritty. Where and when are events taking place this weekend?
The events are taking place Friday. That's today, November 14th, at 1548 Heights Boulevard. That's the church at 1548 Heights. The doors open at 6:30 and the show begins at 7. It's a language night, so it's a highlight of different Indigenous languages. There will be like at least 4 or 5 languages being sung. And then also Saturday, tomorrow, at Trinity Episcopal in Midtown. That's at 1015 Holman Street. And the doors will open at 5:30 and the show begins at 6 p.m. That one will be amazing. But yeah, today is the opening night. So.
And where can Houstonians go to learn more about this?
If you want to check out more, there's a website with a bunch of the composers' names and performers' names. It's at Muskogee Music. It's MVSKOKE and then music. My Instagram. So you can find the website there. Yeah. Or also just Google.
Aryn Ward is a Muskogee and Yuchi composer and the organizer of this weekend's Good Medicine Indigenous Music Festival. Aryn, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you, Mudo.
And that will do it for today's show. The Houston Matters team includes Michael Haggerty, Joshua Zinn, Brenda Valdivia, Mincho Jacob, and Laura Walker. Jared Carroll's our technical director. Josh Zinn will sit in for me on Monday when Dr. Lori Teller will be here to field your dog and cat care questions. Josh will also check in with Believe in Astros podcast co-host Jeff Balke on developments in Houston sports. I'm Craig Cohen. I'll be back on Tuesday. Have a great weekend, then join Josh on Monday for those and other Houston Matters.
Support for Houston Public Media comes from Baylor College of Medicine. With 125 years of innovation behind it, Baylor has driven progress in health and medicine through research, education, and care that push the frontiers of modern science.
Support comes from Theater Under the Stars, bringing you a forecast snowy white with Irving Berlin's Broadway musical White Christmas. On stage at the Hobby Center December 9th through Christmas Eve. Tickets available at tuts.org.
Support comes from Visit Galveston, highlighting holiday shopping